I'm very excited. It kind of all started, my brother was at a boxing event here in Vegas, and someone had given him a PFL card, and my brother gave it to my father, and my dad had reached out to them, and they said that they wanted to talk about me and my MMA career. And from then, we started getting in contact and going on Zoom calls, and they want to give me an opportunity and sign me to like a developmental deal as an amateur and help build my career.
That's incredible. Now, I know this is not your first fight, but you don't have all that much experience. I'm sure you get this question a lot. Grandpa's Muhammad Ali. Why MMA and not boxing?
I always liked MMA. Early high school, I started watching the UFC, and I just really fell in love with the idea that there's different martial arts, and like the judo guy versus the karate guy, the
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu guy versus the wrestler. I kind of really fell in love with that concept, and I just gravitated towards MMA. Don't get me wrong, like I'm still a boxing fan.
Yeah.
I grew up around boxing and watching boxing. I still do, but I don't know, MMA was something that I just clicked onto.
What kind of fighter can we expect to watch when we watch you in November? Are you a striker, or do you have ground skills? Like, what kind of what's your strength?
I think naturally I'm a striker, but this camp and the last camp for my last fight, I've only been grappling. So, and I'm falling in love with grappling as well.
Really?
So, it's MMA. I think you're going to see a mixture of things.
What would your grandfather have thought of MMA? Obviously, it's a relatively new sport compared to boxing, especially. What would he have thought of this crazy MMA stuff?
I think he would have loved it, especially when McGregor was in featherweight in the UFC when he fought Aldo. That whole
Yeah,
reign, he
yeah,
would have loved it. Especially like Connor's trash talk, and Pop. I call him Poppy. Poppy
yeah.
started the trash talk. He would have
Yes.
been super entertaining. I think he would have really liked the sport.
That's so cool. Now, speaking of your grandfather, this your fight, it's happening at Madison Square Garden, and I mean, how it's like poetic, the fact that you would fight at Madison Square Garden. Obviously, all of the great fights that your grandfather had there.
Mhm.
Does that mean anything to you, Biagio? Does that aspect of fighting at Madison Square Garden?
I think it's cool, but at the end of the day, like a fight's a fight. It's
Yeah.
me, the ref, and another guy who's trying to hurt me. Whether it's Madison Square Garden or in the back of someone's barnyard, it's a fight. A fight's a fight. So
Yeah.
it's cool that it's at Madison Square Garden, but I don't care, honestly.
Uh, how do you look at this? Because I could see you saying, hey, because of my family, I get exposure that I might not get at this level of where I'm at. But also, you have people like me always asking you about your grandfather. How do you feel about that? Is that something that you wish you would say, hey, I want to make my own path and be my own person? Do you not mind it? How do you view all of these questions about your grandfather?
I don't mind it. I actually do. I enjoy talking about my grandfather because I love him.
Yeah.
He's somebody that I've always looked up to, and he's just been such a big influence in my life. And he's my grandfather too. So it's not that common where someone who is an icon to you is also a relative.
Right.
So I don't mind it at all. um I'm I'm just like any other fighter. Every fighter wants to make their own name and their own legacy. Like that's
Yeah.
the goal. I'm no different than any other fighter who wants to make their own name and their own legacy. The only difference that I have is I have a famous grandfather.
That's exactly right. And you have obviously put in a tremendous amount of work, and now you're part of, again, one of the biggest organizations out there. I'll let you get out of here on this, Biagio. We did a story I remember years ago about you modeling. Are you done with the modeling and just fighting now, or are you doing both?
I think I'm doing both now. I mean, the last shoot that I had was, I think, last Tuesday. Me and my brother went
Oh
out to
wow.
LA for the day, and we just did a photo shoot. But before that was in 2020. So it
Wow.
doesn't come around that much. But I mean, modeling is extra money. So why not whenever I have time for it?
Yeah, it's probably better to do the modeling gig before the fight too, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Especially if it's a war, you know, I'll show up all bruised up.
I know.
Already got a
All
couple
lumped up.
things,
That's
so
too funny. Let me sneak one more on you before I let you go. How would Grandpa have been at MMA if he got into that cage? How would he have done? Obviously, I don't think anyone would have been on the level with him striking. How would he have done?
I think he would have done great just because of how strong he was mentally, you
Yeah.
know? Like a lot of it is mental. A lot of fighting is mental, and he had the mental part. He had the heart and he had the will. So if you have the will, you can definitely get the skill, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Biagio, thank you so much. Cannot wait. November 25th, Thanksgiving weekend. You are going to do your thing for the first time in the PFL, and we'll all be watching. Thank you so much for
No,
joining
thank
us.
you guys, man. I'm honored to be in this interview and be
Of
able to talk to you guys. So I really appreciate it. I'm grateful.